What's going on, Imperials? It's Emperor Cubone here. The Sinnoh games mark an interesting time for me as a Pokémon fan, because while I loved it from the very start of Red and Blue, I wasn't able to actually have any of the video games, so I had to rely on outside sources for my Pokémon fix. But then the show changed to a channel that we didn't get, and most of my friends decided that they were too cool for Pokémon. So I was sort of left adrift without any outlet for my interests. But once Sinnoh came around, I could not only watch the show again, but for the first time in my life, I had my own money, so I promptly used it to buy a DS and a copy of Pokémon Diamond. I didn't even buy another game for the system until the Johto remix came out. So Sinnoh has a special place in my heart. It was a thrill to finally get to be a Pokémon trainer like I had imagined so many times. And it didn't disappoint. I greatly enjoyed Sinnoh and the Pokémon that were in it. The mix of new and classic Pokémon made the transition easier, but the games did introduce me to my favorite Pokémon of all time, Piplup. Or, more specifically, Empoleon. I've always loved penguins as my favorite animal, so when they made an adorable Pokémon version of the world's best flightless bird, there wasn't even a choice on which starter to pick. But my loyalty was rewarded with what I believe to be one of the best unique type combinations in the Pokémon games to date. No other Pokémon is a Water Steel type, which provides 10 resistances and an immunity, which has got to be some kind of record for starters. My own personal affinity aside, Piplup is obviously great to take on the Rock Gym at the start of the game, which happens to be the third one in 4 generations. But just when you feel like it's about to be at a disadvantage in the Grass Gym, it learns Peck. That's another thing that I love about the Empoleon line. They are unbelievably adept at learning not only Water and Steel moves, but also Flying and even Ice. If you put in the work, it's almost like it can be 4 types in one, which means it can find a way to be useful against the majority of the significant trainers in the region. Not to mention being immune to poison helps with those ever-toxic evil team members. Choosing Empoleon paid off in spades, and it was not only the leader of my first Hall of Fame, but the first Pokemon ever that I trained all the way to level 100. I could go on and on about this Emperor Pokemon, but I'll just say that Empoleon for me was a dream come true. It was a giant, intimidating, almost robot-looking penguin that was able to lead me through its home region with style and ease, and has yet to be dethroned from its rightful place as my favorite Pokemon of all time. But that being said, if I had my way, I would pick another starter as well in Torterra. Torterra shares my issues with all of the Hoenn starters, and that if they were in another generation, it would hands down be my favorite, and I would pick it no problem. This grass-type turtle grows from a cute seedling to a monstrously powerful earth-carrying titan, and I love it so much. It's not their fault that they came out in the same generation as my number 1, so Torterra gets a solid second. There are actually some other grass-type possibilities, but if you ask me, it's no contest to choose Torterra. Maybe only Roserade gives me pause, but even then, I can't say no to this. Plus, when it fully evolves, it gains the ground type, which is my favorite of all types, and learns Earthquake immediately. Sure, it's got a ×4 ice weakness, but who cares? It's literally the Atlas of the Pokemon world. Except you don't have to worry about this tank shrugging. Despite being quite lumbering and having a huge shell, its highest stat is actually its attack. So if you get behind a wood hammer from this thing, you won't last long. And it can get some other decent coverage to hit multiple targets. Taken by itself, it is impressive, but paired with my first choice, they cover each other's weaknesses surprisingly well. Torterra has a bug weakness? Fine, bug resist. Oh, but now there's a ground weakness? Ground resist. That 4 times ice weakness? We've got a quad resistance. Electric weakness? How about an electric immunity? My only regret is that I wasn't able to actually use these 2 Pokemon together when I was first starting out. Torterra is honestly one of my favorite grass types, and does deserve to get recognized to peek out from the shadow of its phenomenal starting partner. For years and years in the Pokemon games, it was absolutely essential that you have a Pokemon with the HM Fly. Somehow Fly never seemed to be quite the burden that the rest of the HMs were. For me, this all but ensured a team slot went to a flying type of some kind, and more often than not, it was the regional bird. But I was never so happy to welcome one into the team as I was in the Sinnoh region. Starly, for my money, is far and away the most adorably endearing first stage of any of the birds. It is just so cute, but also clearly able to rumble when the going gets tough. Staravia is a solid continuation even if it does suffer from severe middle stage awkwardness, but it's worth the struggle to reach the end product of Staraptor. As with most good flying types, Staraptor is built for power and speed. And to prove it, they gave it the absurdly powerful new move, Brave Bird, which is the flying type Double Edge. And while it's not technically a signature move, it was the only new Pokemon in Gen 4 to learn it through Level Up. And if that wasn't enough, this avian predator also learns the move Close Combat, which is not only another hugely damaging move, but also provides fighting coverage. Do you know how many birds get fighting moves? It's literally a game changer, because it now has a completely different tool to take out otherwise problematic targets. It can now have a super effective move against rock and ice types, both of which it is weak to, and would have to fear if you didn't know that you could outspeed it with its own weakness. Not to mention that Berry Staraptor is the Pokemon that single-handedly introduced me to the strategies and irritations of the brand new move U-Turn. But I'm sure that won't come up again, so... Staraptor was able to take the normal flying type combination, a trope that has been around in great numbers since the beginning, and actually make it not only viable, but intimidating. I had never considered that one of the regional birds might also have an extra hidden talent for battle, but Staraptor showed me just how fierce they could actually be. The next spot on the team goes to another that's a candidate for my favorite team of all-stars, and that is Gliscor. I'll admit that Gligar never really moved the needle for me one way or the other. It was there, and the ground flying typing was a cool, unique touch, but I never paid attention to it. Then, like many other Pokemon in Gen 4, it got a new lease on life with a new evolution. And in Gligar's case, it too actually benefited from the situation with Eviolite coming in later. But its evolved form is truly magnificent. Gliscor truly is like the Batman of the Pokemon world, striking fear into the hearts of its enemies. It's a giant winged scorpion with at least half a dozen ways that it could kill you. Its typing leaves it with only 2 weaknesses, but also provides 2 immunities, and gives it stab on some of my all-time favorite moves. But Gliscor is surprisingly bulky anyway, so you'll get to stick around for longer than you might expect. If you wanted to, you could have a Gliscor as early as level 2, since all it takes is leveling it up with a Razor Fang at night. Gliscor also provided me with one of the most anime-feeling moments I have ever had in the games. I would always train at the cafe between Pastoria and Sunyshore at the Valor Lakefront because it was guaranteed daily experience and basically free money. And all of those battles there are double battles, so I was using Staraptor and Gliscor. I had Gliscor use Feint Attack on a Psychic type, which has changed spelling in the recent generations for some reason, but Staraptor went first and took out the other opponent, causing Gliscor to level up. This caused Gliscor to want to learn the new move Night Slash, which is a pretty good move, but I didn't need 2 Dark-type moves, so I taught it over Feint Attack. At this point I had forgotten that that was the move I selected, but since this was all in the same turn, Gliscor immediately went into Night Slash, and I was momentarily stunned. I didn't know that could even happen like that, but the scene quickly conjured in my head. Gliscor, use Feint Attack! Whoa, what was that? That was Night Slash! Looks like Gliscor learned a more powerful Dark-type move! Wow! Alright Gliscor, let's do this! This Pokemon is honestly one that I never expected to appreciate so much, but its combination of power, defenses, moves, and general awesomeness make for a masterful blend that no Sinnoh team would be complete without. The next choice was a bit more difficult, since I really love Luxray, It's another early route Pokemon that's an electric type. Any sort of variety in the early game is much appreciated, so having an electric type this early was a nice change of pace. However, anyone that's used a Shinx in Sinnoh will know that it takes a lot of dedication, since it doesn't even learn an electric type attack until it evolves, and then doesn't learn another one until after it evolves again. They fixed this flaw in later games, but while Crunch is a great coverage move, that's about the only one that it gets. For whatever reason, Luxray's move pool is almost non-existent. But all of that doesn't stop it from being one of my favorites, and it would go on the team, except there's one other electric type that they added in Sinnoh that I think would work better. What? No, not you. I'm talking about Electivire. Electivire is a giant thundering Sasquatch, and it evolves from Electabuzz when holding an Electrizer. I do so love the design of this lightning bolt behemoth, and the facts are that its stats somehow make it an even stronger and faster physical electric type than Luxray itself. And Electivire does not have the same move pool limitations, learning all sorts of possible moves that provide far more coverage, many of which are still physical. Top that off with an ability that gives it an immunity to electric itself, and it's a clear victory. It would take some outside intervention to get an Elekid near the beginning, however, I'm used to that at this point. Plus, it's one of my favorite baby Pokemon. But it would also be my prerogative that, should I want to, I could evolve it into Electivire as soon as it reached level 30, since that doesn't alter the moves that it can learn at all, nor the levels at which they're learned. Even if I believe Luxray to be the more iconic Pokemon to the Sinnoh region, if we're going to go into an all-out war, I'm going to have to draft the Pokemon that's better suited to the task and go with this other later evolution. So that's 2 later evolutions that we have on the team, but that's not really surprising since over a fourth of the Sinnoh Dex is comprised of relations to older Pokemon. And I gotta say that for the most part, they did a good job. Now, this is the obligatory part of the list where people will say, you forgot Infernape? Well, personally, Infernape isn't one of my favorites, so why would I want a Pokemon that I don't like on my ideal team? Or they could say, you have to pick Garchomp, it's the best Sinnoh Pokemon there is. You'd be stupid not to. Perhaps, but I personally prefer Flygon for that specific combination, and given that we've already got 2 Pokemon with 4 times Ice weaknesses, I'm not too keen on adding a third. However, I do like that ground typing. But what do you say that we have the Ice type work for us instead? I think Mamoswine would be an appropriate final pick for the team. This is another Pokemon that took someone perfectly acceptable from Johto and unsuspectingly made them into a beast. This Pokemon goes from a pig to a literal mammoth that somehow has the highest attack out of all the other ones that we just picked. The powerful ground and rock moves more than make up for any fire weakness, since hidden abilities weren't a thing in Sinnoh, and we've yet to get those remakes. Not to mention, it can sneak past faster opponents with the priority Ice Shard. Mamoswine is one of the few Pokemon that is actively giving the Ice type a good name, since it's so easy to use compared to the rest of them, mostly because it doesn't always die in a single hit. In fact, it's one of the few surviving Pokemon from a long time ago, outliving most of its peers, and has me hopeful that we might one day see more Pokemon centered around the Ice Age. Plus, in other regions, Mamoswine is used as a ride through harsh terrain, so I could potentially use mine to get past the awful lot of snowy areas that are around the mountains in Sinnoh. Mamoswine is simply an excellent Pokemon on all fronts. Design, stats, playability, origin, and it's one that could definitely contribute to my Sinnoh team being the absolute best it could be. There are some other Pokemon that I really like from Sinnoh, and that I could have gone with, but I feel confident that these 6 make a fantastic team, and honestly, every one of them is an absolute favorite of mine. So, which Pokemon from Sinnoh are your favorites? Let me know down in the comments. Also be sure to leave a like, share this video, and subscribe so that you too can become an Imperial today. And we'll see you around next time!